Hello, Eighth, and welcome to the Thursday lesson. Keep pushing towards the end of the week. Let's continue where we were last time. As I've told you, always, if you want a note sheet, I have it here. Feel free to print it. If it's typed, go ahead and type with the questions. Keep it in categories, but make sure the volume is on. Jot down any specifics that you may need, and make sure we're right on track. So hopefully everybody's doing well, enjoying themselves, and getting ready for almost the end of the week, even though every day kind of feels it's all together. So let's continue where we were last time with the virtues. The next virtue we'd like to talk about, and I would have loved to have the opportunity to show this in the classroom because we sometimes have a lot of fun with this, but what is meekness? Meekness is the virtue opposed to anger. I've gone ahead, I have a couple pictures here of baseball managers. I've showed you some videos of baseball managers and players who get a little bit more than upset when a call is, there are some calls that have been incorrectly made by umpires and those in authority figures, referees, and you'll have players, you'll have managers that'll get upset. And sometimes it's that, they're brought into that moment and they're afraid that that one error is going to cost them a win or a championship or their great legacy. And sometimes they get a little out of control. And I've showed you some, I know you guys have enjoyed is not the word I want to use, but enjoyed to see what not to do. We have our great friend Mike Tyson. Some of you know him, great boxer. I know Tyler knows who it is. An incredible career, but many times has gotten a little bit more than upset in interviews and also in some fights. We have Maria Clara's favorite, Kermit the Frog, up top, who in that particular photo, in a lighthearted way, is getting a little angry. But what you can tell is this. All of us at one point in our life, hopefully less of it than more, will be angry. We'll get upset with something. Maybe that happened today. Maybe it happened just the other day. I know sometimes it gets a little difficult if you're always home. Many of you are all home together, and it might get you a little angry, and you might not be mad at mom or dad or guardian or your little friend or older friend, depending, but you might just be upset at the situation that you may be currently in. Or sometimes mom may say, oh, no, you can't go to that event. And you might say, why can't I go to that event? That was a great school dance all of our friends are going to. And mom may be looking out for your best interest. And sometimes we look at it and we get mad at that individual, whether it be mom or guardian at that time, and kind of take out our anger on them. As we get older, we'll start to see those moments that our parents went ahead and made those suggestions or those changes or those recommendations. We'll realize, hopefully you'll realize, that they did that for you, to make you a better person. At the same time, many of you are involved in sports, and I know if you make an error or someone on your team makes an error or the referee makes an error or the coach, you get upset. You start to get very angry. And a lot of times you may, when you think about that a few minutes later, hour later, days later, weeks, months, years later, you will realize many of those moments you may have taken over the top, even though at that time you did not realize it. It's important for us, and it's easy for me to say and for you to listen right now, but it's important for us to remember this virtue during those moments. Sometimes it's best to walk away from the situation as opposed to escalating it, because escalating it can generally make it worse for you, because when you get really angry, you're not feeling that great. You're feeling pretty bitter, pretty fired up, really upset, and sometimes out of control. And how does the other person or people on the other side feel? And that, of course, can ruin relationships, can ruin friendships. And it's important for us to realize that this virtue, even though we may laugh at a video of somebody getting angry, this virtue is a reminder that we need to think before we act. And again, it's easy for us to say, but the more we practice it, the better we can get at following this virtue. Humility. What is humility on the left? Humility is the virtue that is opposed to pride. The virtue opposed to pride. We have great friends here. Senator Bob Dole, Roberto Clemente, great baseball player, Yogi Berra, great baseball player, and Stan the Man Musial, another great baseball legend. And I have all these people here, and I'll explain why. Our great friend Bob Dole, and I know we were looking forward to meet him, but last year's group will tell you that he is one of the most humble human beings you'll ever meet. He's a World War II hero. He was a senator for many, many years, inspirational leader for our nation in his role in the Senate. He nearly became president in the 1996 election. Yet he's a tremendously down-to-earth person. You would never know when he was younger, when he was older, you would never know who he was or what he accomplished. He didn't go around, never went around and bragged about what he accomplished. He never went around and bragged about the medals and awards that he's won. Instead, he's always looked at how can he give back to humanity. You think about him now, 97 years young, still, he was still willing to meet with us. And his office actually called me the other day to tell me, he was a little disappointed about it. But we're all just hanging in the loop, him as well, figuring out what's going on in the world. But he is a great, great person in the sense of not going around and saying, oh, I'm from this political party and you must support this person, because Bob Dole's a Republican, but he supports both sides because his goal, his whole life is the betterment of this country. And that's what a great politician does, is look at the betterment for this country. And he was one who did not want that party divide, but instead showing great pride for the nation. What can we do to work together for our country? You have several different baseball players on the bottom. You can put a lot of people here, as that you might think of someone who doesn't go around and brag. Those are individuals who follow this humility, virtue of humility. Stan the Man Musial. I met him when I was very, very young, back in 2005. All the people on the bottom have passed. But he was a great individual who could arguably be the greatest baseball player of all time. In the sense of person, you would never know that. He would take the time for anybody to talk with them, say hello to them, sign an autograph. And he's extremely, extremely humble. He used to love to go to McDonald's when he was older, and he'd pick up McDonald's for his grandkids. And he'd walk in like we would into McDonald's and wait in line, and people would say, oh, are you Stan Musial? And he would be very humble about it. He wouldn't brag about it. Sports Friends, if you take a look at his stats, his numbers are pretty insane, but you wouldn't know that on the humble human being he was. Yogi Berra, he would go ahead and attend spring training for the Yankees for many, many years without looking for any pay in return. All he was looking for is to help the younger people, help people like Derek Jeter when they came along, work with Alex Rodriguez, many, many big names, and also, other players. We want to work with all players to help them out, and that's what a great person does. Roberto Clemente, a great, tremendous player. All three of these could be in your top of the greatest of all time, especially when it comes down to their position on the field. But Roberto Clemente actually, he died when he was still active, still an active player. In the off season, in the winter, he was going back to his country, and he went ahead and he went to go, I believe it was in Puerto Rico is where he's from. And he went ahead and was bringing supplies back, food back for the underprivileged people there. And the plane he was using, he wasn't flying at the time, but the plane he was using actually crashed and he died. So he died literally living a life of virtue. He was a tremendous, big, big superstar. He's the only player to have exactly and retire with exactly 3,000 hits. But the thing is, he didn't retire. He passed away 1972 as he's going to give food to these people. His plane crashed and unfortunately leaves this world. But what's more important than the baseball careers of these men, the political career of our friend Bob Dole, is they were proud to be a part of this great nation. They were proud of their careers. They all knew what they accomplished, but they never went around and bragged, look what I did, look what I was able to do. And that's what a great, great hero, that's what a great, humble human being does. And that's essential to follow. Like our friend Tyler watches wrestling, right? A lot of us like that, hopefully. But some individuals will be on television sometimes because, that's all entertainment based and say, I'm the best and you can never beat me. And they go on television, look at my belt, look at my trophy. And they're bragging. Of course, that's all scripted, but that's exactly not how not to follow this virtue. Liberality. What is liberality on the left? Liberality. It enables a person to give freely of his money, possessions, talents, and so on to worthy purposes. To give freely of money, possessions, talents, and so on to worthy purposes. So you're going to want to jot that down. You could jot down some of the names of these people that I bring up too, because that's helpful for your deeper understanding. But you have some individuals here. Our friend Methuselah might know our friend Paul Newman here on the left. Why does Methuselah know him? Because Methuselah knows the great store Stu Leonard's, where we can get what I have right here. I have Paul Newman's iced tea in a glass with our great friend Roberto Clemente. So it's twofold, two great friends in one. So we will certainly have a toast to our great friend there. But Paul Newman did something. I know some of you might remember him from last year. If you go into your fridge, into your cabinet, you may have his salad dressing. You may have his iced tea or his lemonade or one of his products. It's possible that you do have it or you have had it in your life. Paul Newman came up with a brand, Newman's Own. Of course, Paul Newman, a great, very famous actor many years ago. Our great friend, Miss Gumber, I had the opportunity to meet with him and speak with him during her first few years in education. She has great admiration and respect for him. But Paul Newman, tremendous actor, a fantastic acting career. But what does he do when he gets older? He partners with his great friend, Stu Leonard Sr., who owns the great grocery store that our friend Methuselah and other people enjoy. And this was in Norwalk, still there. Some of you may have been there before. And it's the first of their stores. And Paul Newman is going to promote his products, starting with salad dressing. And his friend Stu Leonard is going to give him that opportunity to sell it in his store. Not sure where this is going to go. Is Paul Newman looking to make money? No, he's looking to go ahead and donate that money to charity. So any profit that the company makes is still to this day donated to charity. His wife has continued his mission. His family has continued his mission. And he created basically this product of salad dressing. I know they have popcorn, different snacks. Now it's grown a little bit, but all to help people in the world. Incredible. Our great friend in the middle, Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John Paul II. Everybody should know who he is by now. As we know, he is someone who was extremely devoted to sharing the faith with others. I don't just say that because he was Pope, but he was able to really captivate young people. You may remember that from last year when we watched a documentary on him, where he's able to speak and energize young people because he knew you all were the future of the faith. So he had that ability to bring people of all races, of all nationalities together, people throughout the world. He's known as the traveling Pope because he's able to go around the world and captivate people through his great sermons, through his great teachings, and through example. And then I mentioned Yogi Berra before on the right, who would for free for many years go to work as a coach to help younger generations of players. As you can see in the photograph, he's way past his playing career, but that didn't stop him until his late 80s. He would continue to do so. Great individuals. Moderation. What is moderation? This virtue enables one to use food and drink sensibly. So what is moderation on the left? The virtue enables one to use food and drink sensibly, enjoying them in proper amounts and at suitable times. What that means is You know, sometimes when I would get upset during yearbook, where we would have those days when we'd have everybody basically stay after, and I'd put out snacks. All of a sudden, we have some people with a lot of snacks, and then Tyler and Bento and Alex walk into the room, not even late, literally 30 seconds after everybody else, and they're like, "What happened? Where's all the food?" And you have all these people with all these cups, even though I said don't use the cups, right? All the cups, all paper towels. Oh, look at all the chips I have, and having a giant feast. It's like our great friend Savion from a few years ago. He used to say, "Mr. Ray, I'm getting ready for a feast. I'm feasting." And many times after lunch, he would have so much, oh, it didn't feel good. Well, exactly, because we're supposed to have this in portions. And I know many of you who are at home now hopefully have followed this the past few days, because it may get a little boring and you may just keep eating. But we want to make sure, we're using food and drink sensibly. We're not enjoying overload amount. I know you all are growing, so at this stage you're gonna like to have a lot. Keep eating, but we must realize, especially when there's other people around, that we should make sure everybody has had some before we continue to have more. And not only does that show manners, but it follows moderation, and that's essential when it goes into drinking as well. And it's really important to focus on the proper amounts of that we consume of whatever it may be. We have 4 cans, 5 cans of Coke. Does that make us feel good? Probably not. Probably not. But once in a while, yeah, it tastes great. When we have a giant bag of chips, does that make us feel good? Probably not. We're going to feel really sick after. But if we have a little bag in little portions, we may feel pretty good. That's the use of moderation at all times, please. Brotherly love. Brotherly love is the virtue that enables one to show true love for one's neighbor. That includes praying for him, doing acts of kindness for him, and then fix this error here, and helping him in his needs. If you've ever seen someone who's struggling on an assignment and they haven't gone ahead and asked for help, but you go ahead and extend and lend a helping hand, that's following brotherly love. You may have somebody who's struggling on their math. You're going to go ahead, oh, I can help you. Maybe the other day, some people were struggling to get connected on their Zoom lesson. Then somebody else, oh, you know what, I'll help you do that. And not going ahead and giving the answers. Oh, Mr. A, well, no, here's my workbook. Just copy that one down, right? Just write that down. That's not following the brotherly love, because that's not helping them. That's just, oh, here's my answers. But what we want to know is that's showing true love, to help one. We have many people, I told you, I've seen them on television so many times on the news, that are going out and helping older friends buy groceries. You have many people resorting to pray. What Father Gannon went ahead and did the other day was tremendous. It's that brotherly love. And he's praying for all of us. And we could do the same too. Acts of kindness. You don't just need to be a service club friend to participate in acts of kindness, but think of when you may have donated something to a charity, or you may have helped someone in need, or you donated money or your time. And that's essentially following brotherly love in your lifetime. What is diligence on the left-hand side? What is diligence? What's important to know is, I use this word quite a bit, but it is the virtue that enables us to do our work and carry out our religious duties with devotion and dedication. When I say work diligently, that means you're focused, you're determined, you're getting the job done to the best of your ability. You are determined, you are really, really making this your duty, that you must get this done, not just because somebody may be paying you or watching you, but because we know it's best for us. We want to carry out our religious duties diligently. This year, it's very, very interesting because Easter services will be live streamed from church. And I'll go ahead, I'll post that. I'm going to still count that as I do every year for religion extra credit. It shouldn't be labeled as easy for this year, but Father Gannon will be live streaming the Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday and Easter Masses. I'm going to do the same as I do every year. 5 points extra credit for participation in the Mass. Just go ahead and have a note emailed to me, and you'll be good to go. We'll take that. That'll be fine. And that's because we're carrying out our religious duties diligently. We're not saying, oh, I can't go to church, so I'm not going to pray, or I'm not going to follow God right now because the church door is closed. No, we must realize that this is when we need our faith the most. This is when we need really to pray to God, to pray for our world, and to pray for people, because we know the power of our faith better than anyone ever could. And we need to take that knowledge and display it now more than ever. In school, I had many, many individuals that have inspired me to work diligently. We have many of our great friends, and let me go through them very quickly. You don't need to write anything down, but these are three of, this is personal opinion. You know, I never insert personal opinion. I always say fact. This is personal opinion. Three of my favorite teachers. These are the three that I've learned the most from. Two friends on the bottom. When I was your age and I was in their class, I really, really didn't like it. The reason why I really, really didn't like it is because there was a lot of work. My great friend, Miss Barbara Gotch, who helped us a lot this year, and she's bummed out as we are. She went ahead, and when I was a student, of course, I did work with her later in my career, as you see on the left, or later in her career, and early in mine. She's an individual who taught art, and she taught art as if it was a math class. We had art 3 days a week. We had all our specials 3 days a week. So by having art 3 days a week, it's pretty easy to go ahead and have projects, have assessments. So she kept us on our toes, and we were able to learn a tremendous amount of organization, respect, and the have everything in a full sentence actually for me came from my art teacher, because she would want us to not only complete art, but we'd have to complete worksheets to reflect on our art after it was done. Was it annoying? Was it frustrating? Absolutely. But I really focused on it, realized what she was trying to get at, especially with her due dates, which sometimes were overwhelming. But she was able to teach me the importance of staying on top of your work, and a great role model of a great teacher who was more than fair, sometimes a little bit more than loud, but more than fair when it came to how do we deal with a certain situation. Our great friend, Mrs. Anita Valenti, taught math for many, many years in the Greenwich Public School System. A great individual, but when I tell you that she's one of the strictest teachers I've ever had, absolutely. She wasn't strict because she didn't like what she did or she didn't like us. No, it's because she cared that much about us. And a lot of times it would come out as a little arrogant or a little condescending, the way she would speak to the students. But she explained the assignment, and literally her whole period was her writing the notes in cursive on the chalkboard. And if you didn't know cursive, you better figure it out, was her answer. It was mandated for us to write our notes in cursive, and she did check. She was big on our writing to make sure our writing skills were brushed up as well as our math skills. But the whole notebook check organization comes from our great friend. She taught me if you do that, it makes life a lot easier. And it's a tool to stay organized in life and not just in school. Our great friend, Craig Anderson, he's the only one of the three that's no longer with us, and he's actually the youngest of the three. And their great friend, Craig Anderson, taught English for many years at Greenwich Public Schools, Greenwich High School in particular. And literally, if you submitted something, you basically either got an A or an A minus, and if you annoyed him, you got a B plus, and you're kept off of high honors. That's the type of individual he was. So while there was a lot of work, we weren't necessarily afraid of, are we going to get a good grade? If you submitted something, you literally, unless you got him upset, you got a good grade, 100 or close to it. But if you keep asking him questions, he takes some points off. Pretty interesting grading system. Not sure if it would work anymore. But this great individual went ahead for many years and devoted a tremendous amount of time to his students, after school, before school, even when he was older. And he was able to be a really caring individual who taught us a lot more about life, and that has helped me tremendously in my life. And where we go from here, and about college, and about high school, and interaction with peers, a great, great, tremendous individual. All three of them have taught me to work diligently. So I hope you have some people that have inspired you to do the same. The last one, okay, is chastity. What is chastity on the left-hand side? Is the quality of state of being chaste, being pure, and that includes being pure in thought. We know that the Virgin Mary is the absolute prime example of following this great virtue in her lifetime, but it's important to realize that this virtue is attainable as well, especially, like I said, in thought. And what we do need to know is, this is pretty interesting. I bring this up every year, and following this virtue, and you'll take a look. It's pretty interesting. I would say to jot this down, and this is all coming from our textbook. Is in the 1950s. I mean, you may have grandparents or some people you may know who were married at a much younger age than now. 25. The majority of people were married then by 25, and most people would be married in a church. At the same time, you have many people who would just have one or two relationships in a lifetime and remain devoted to that individual during their lifetime. Of course, we know, issues come up here and there, but that was society higher percentile. In most households, it would be a nuclear family, mom with dad and children, two, 3 or 4 children. And that was life generally in the 1950s. In television and film, sometimes you'll see portrays it as perfect. It wasn't perfect. Families had the issues they have today. So we never want to have, it was perfect in 1950 and it's not anymore. No, this just comes from changes that we've seen in society. And some people say that as church attendance falls, society becomes more accepting of changes in morals. And I'd like you to think for a moment, it says you, but why do people think that? If church attendance falls, society becomes more accepting of changes in morals. Like it's more acceptance. I don't need to follow any of these virtues at all, any of the ones I've mentioned. Is that acceptable? And that's something to think about. At the same time, this is all basis of a Christian marriage, Catholic marriage. And I'd like you to take a moment and jot this down. So these follow, again, the course text that we have and our curriculum map. So what is the purpose of a Christian marriage on the left-hand side? What is the purpose of a Christian marriage on the left-hand side? And here's what I'd like you to jot down on the right. So the purpose of the Christian marriage is as follows, okay? To love and to cherish, to remain committed, for better or for worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to honor and to protect, and to remain faithful for life. And I bolded words, right? And you might say, Mr. A, these sound like vows, wedding vows. Absolutely. And that's, again, coming right from the church, from our church, in words that we must remember at all times. Here are the purposes: a lifelong relationship of love and faithfulness to that individual. 2, support and comfort for one another. And 3, to have and bring up children in a Christian family. That's procreation. And those are the purposes of a valid Christian marriage. And that, again, as I always say, not coming from this, not Mr. A said this. No, it is coming from the Catholic Church. It is something that the Catholic Church has said for many, many years. And it's important to see and to understand and to realize the importance of devotion, of love, of support, and of comfort. I have an interesting example here. You don't necessarily need to jot this down. You can if you like, but I know we have a lot of history friends here who really like this. You might not know these people here, But we have King Edward VIII. He was actually forced to give up his position as king in 1936 as he fell in love and wanted to marry an American divorced woman. So he wanted to marry a girl who was divorced. So in order for him to marry her, so she had been previously married, divorced, and was going to marry a second time, he actually couldn't be king anymore because of that, because the king shouldn't be marrying someone who was divorced, and that was seen as something unacceptable. And what's interesting is in 2005, Prince Charles, you may know him, he's a divorced man. He married Camilla Parker, and who was also divorced. So both of them, right? This was not their first marriage. And Prince Charles, is in line to become the next king of the UK and the Commonwealth. And that's interesting because in 1936, that wasn't acceptable. And then in 2005, nobody really questioned that. And you start to see these changes that occur in society. And then it goes back to the question that I had before, right? And again, this question, all this information comes from the text. Some people say as church attendance falls, society becomes more accepting of changes in morals. And that's important for us to think about always. What I'd like you to do right now is your note set is done, so you may go ahead and staple them together. Let me know if you have any questions. But you watched, hopefully you listened. What I'd like you to do right now is go ahead and reflect on the document I have. Please be specific so I can see you have a full understanding of the subject. Material presented. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and submit that by 8, and you should be good to go. Let me know if you have any questions. Stay well and keep following the virtues now and always.